Hello again. So today I thought I'd start talking about the four reminders, the four mind-turning reflections. And the first of these, of course, is the preciousness of our human birth. I think we can easily take our human birth for granted. Perhaps not quite so much now, because we know that we could get very ill or even die with the coronavirus. And we can't be sure, although it's a lot of very elderly people dying, it's also people of all ages. So we can't be sure, and it hasn't reached its peak yet. So maybe we are thinking a little bit about our human life and how precious it is. So we haven't got this human birth by chance. That's the first thing to say, really. There are prior causes and conditions according to Buddhism. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a Mahayana teaching, and in particular I was looking at a book called Meaningful to Behold by Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, and he used the analogy of finding a nugget of gold and not realising its value, how we might squander that gold on pretty useless things. So he makes that analogy that saying, that's what often we do with our lives. We don't appreciate it, so that we kind of wander through life half asleep, or as I sometimes put it, we let life happen to us rather than really engaging with it. So sometimes we can feel like we haven't got much control, almost like we think there's fate or luck rather than we're in the driving seat in any way. And by being in the driving seat, I'm not talking about controlling our life. It's like there's lots of aspects that are out of our control, but it's more like directing our life in a positive way. To take his analogy even further, finding that nugget of gold, sometimes we might even just throw it away, see it as a worthless stone, not see it for what it is. And we can do that in a number of ways, I think, by not seeking to be aware, by living in a state of unawareness. So, yes, the value of the human birth is found in a particular Mahayana teaching in two lists. As you know, Buddhism is very good with its lists. And these are called the freedoms and the endowments, the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments. I'm not going to go through each one. Some of them are in a way, I suppose, quite Tibetan in terms of their teaching, and we might not particularly relate to it. But first of all, though, we are free from birth in the other realms of existence. So if you're familiar with the Tibetan wheel of life, you'll be aware of those other realms, the hell realms, the animal realms, the hungry ghost realms, the god realms, and the jealous god realms. So we haven't been born in those realms. It doesn't mean that we don't experience some of what they experience in this life, but that is generally because of the way that we live our life, because of our spiritual ignorance, you could say. But basically, we are born in very favourable conditions. And we're also free from the obstacles, or a lot of obstacles, that are within ourselves, which would prevent us being open to the dharma. So such as an inability to understand the law of cause and effect. So karma, as you know, in Buddhism is extremely important, that we have an awareness that actions have consequences. And I was quite interested in this little bit about karma in another book, The Way of Awakening, which is another commentary on Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, and that's by Geshe Yeshe Togden. And he says, Dharma practice depends on a belief in karma, the law of cause and effect, and acting on it. It doesn't matter how profound our knowledge of the Dharma is. If we do not follow the law of cause and effect, we cannot be claimed to be true practitioners. A true practitioner is one who understands and acts upon this law, however limited his knowledge might be. So karma has 4 characteristics, he says. It is certain. If we create positive or negative causes, the results will surely be of the same kind. And it's extremely important that we believe that we see it, and we can find that for ourselves. You know, sometimes when people come to learn meditation at the Buddhist Center, I generally say, look, if you want to find out whether meditation is efficacious, if it's going to really help you, you must commit yourself to it for, say, 6 months. Try it, and if it's disappointing to you, give it up. Do something else. But in a way, you have got to see something through. So we are creating all the time, actually in any moment, positive or negative effects. And it says here, number 2 is it's expandable. Tiny seeds will give a great amount of fruit. So I think I've found that to be very true. You know, if we put in a bit of effort, it pays great dividends. If we do not create a certain type of karma, we will not experience its consequences. We will certainly not be able to experience karma created by another. And in the same way, others will not experience our karma. We make our own karma. And number 4 is created karma never dissipates. So all the time we're making karma that has an effect. You know, we can't ignore that fact. And in a way, we have to take responsibility for that. That's the great thing about Buddhism. You know, we are responsible for ourselves. So yes, I've said something about the freedoms and just very briefly about the endowments. Once again, I'm just going to précis in a very tight way because I'm running out of time. So endowments include the ability to have faith and confidence to develop ourselves. We all have that. And, you know, everybody that comes to the Buddhist Center is drawn towards something higher, something deeper, something broader, whichever way you like to put it. And we're living at a time when the Dharma exists and there are teachers with insight to teach us. So we shouldn't take that for granted. It's like we're living in a time when we can develop ourselves, when we can learn a lot, when we have the mentoring of others and so on. And, you know, our greatest potential is the state of freedom from suffering. That's what the Buddha told us. Freedom from suffering. We can all gain enlightenment. And enlightenment is gained from the state of being a human being. So that's a bit about the human birth and the preciousness of the human birth. So let's really make use of it. I'll see you tomorrow.